Alright, hello, this is Jeff Scott of Blackhawk Technical College coming at you with part 3 of the out-of-class calculator project. In the first part of the project, let's see, what do we have here? It's here someplace. Okay, I don't know what I did with it now. I did this. Alright, and I'm going to give you these steps today in class. I try to follow them as well as possible, and I think that I've got them correct now. So these are the steps, the 13 steps to build the interface. First, we created a single view app in Xcode, called it Calculator, chose Swift as our language, iPhone for the type, saved it to the desktop, kept all the default settings. In other words, we had it set up to work in either either in portrait or landscape. Then I open up the storyboard. I change the background color to like a turquoise, drag the label into the upper left hand corner of the screen using the dotted blue lines as guides. So in other words, I did this right here. Next, I stretch the label to the upper right corner, again using the dotted blue lines as guides. Then I control drag left, right, and up. So in other words, I held down onto here and held down on control and dragged like that and like that. Oops, sorry. And like that. So I did all those. Why? Because what that did was it made sure that regardless of whether I was in portrait mode or landscape mode, that label would take up the entire width of my screen. Step 6, I changed the background color of the label to gray. I changed the font color to white. I also, someplace up here, made it about double the width that it currently was. Okay. I changed the font size of the label to 50, I changed the justification to right, and the label text to 0. So when I got done, it looked like this. Alright, next, I'm up to step 7 here. I dragged the button to the upper left hand corner, put it snug against the label, changed its size to about 80 by 80, and changed the text on the button to 7 and the font size to 40. Then I copied it basically and made a whole row of those buttons. So when I got done, originally that said 7, and I copied it over 3 times, so I had 4 buttons across. Then I copied this down so that I had a total of 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20 buttons. So 4 buttons across, 5 buttons down. Alright, I created, for lack of better words, kind of like a 4x5 array of buttons. I relabel the buttons as shown on the screen here. So that became 7. This is my backspace key. Clear everything. Clear, plus minus, 7, 8, 9, addition, 4, 5, 6, subtraction, 1, 2, 3, multiplication, a blank holder right there, 0, square root, and division. And these symbols, all these symbols here, these 5 and the one here, I ended up getting them via edit, special characters, and I went down to the mathematical characters, which are, or math symbols, which are right there. Okay, that showed me all of them. I think for the square root, I did a search on it, so I typed in square root, and there it came up, and that's the one that I used. All right, which got me up to step 10 here, and step 11. I grabbed all the buttons as a unit, opened the pin setting with all of the buttons collectively chosen, All right. I click the equal widths and the equal heights. In the Add New Constraints section at the top, I put an 8 in each box and click the little red line to the right. And I've done this a couple times, and twice I got 93, twice I got 87 constraints. So, I got to add 87 constraints. When you do that, it looks bad because you've got a combination of blue lines all over the place and some yellow lines all over the place. So to try to fix that, fix this a little bit here. Trying to just clean this thing up so I can give it to you this afternoon in class. Okay, I want to make sure there are no errors in here whatsoever, and I don't think there are. All right, so when I got done with all the buttons highlighted, as mentioned right here, I went to the pin setting. So with everything highlighted, I went over to the pin setting. And under the pin setting, I set all of these to 8, so there were basically 8 pixels between each button and the top and the bottom. So I put an 8 there, 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 and there. And when I did that, I made sure that these were all checked. And I chose equal widths and equal heights. And you should get somewhere then around 80 to 100 different constraints once you do that. Whoops. Okay. Then I check, as it says, click the document outline on the bottom. And when I did that, and I clicked the document outline, what I got, you don't see it now, but what I got over here was I got a yellow circle with a dot in it. And when I clicked that yellow circle with a dot in it, it told me that I had a bunch of goofed up constraints, for lack of better words. All right, and they were all in here for my button. And it showed me them, basically, all of them. And then what I did was I just chose any one, and I happened to just choose the first one. And then it gave me a list of options. I chose both update frame and apply to all views. Then I clicked the button that said fix misplacement. That should have resolved, and it did in my case, all of the auto layout issues. When I did all that, that was step 1, and that's the only thing I've written these steps out for. But when we got done with that, I now had this. All right, so I had my interface built, but there was still nothing in it. There was no code in it whatsoever. So that was basically the first version of the calculator. So I'm going to close the project here. Let's do a file. Save right there. Should be able to close this now. All right, that got me up to version 2 of the calculator. Now this one, when I did it at home, took my time, etc., I had virtually no problems with it. All right. When I did it and taped it the other day, had problems with it. All right, so let's take a look at everything that was put in here. In other words, let's go into, let's show the storyboard. Don't really need the document outline right now. I don't really need that either, so. So again, this is what I was working with here. So let's go back and take a look at all of the code that I put in. This is what I went over on the second lecture. Excuse me. So I'm going to do this, and then when I get done, I'm going to show you how I changed the code for the final version. Now, I'm not lying to you. I basically gleaned a lot of this from that Stanford University lecture. So the first thing I did was to wire up the label. I control-clicked down, chose IB outlet weak, var display UI label. And you saw that it had the exclamation point there. Which the exclamation point means that this must be explicitly unwrapped. In other words, what it does is what you're saying there is this label is going to be set or it's going to be unset. In fact, it's got to always be set with the exclamation point. If you don't set it, it's going to be set to nil. All right, but otherwise you can set it. Then I created a couple of variables at the top of the program that I'm going to use throughout the program. One is a Boolean that's called isUserTypingNumber. Again, I could have done this. I could have said here, bool, or Boolean. Could have done that. The recommendation, so far at least, by the people who write Swift is that you don't do that. In other words, you use type inferencing. You let the system figure out what the type is. In much the same way, I could have done this. This would have been pretty ugly, but I could have done it. You'll notice that when I get done, if I do this right, I shouldn't have any error messages there. Or do I need the paren there too? So I'm screwing it up somehow. But again, this is type inferencing here. This is letting the system know that operand stack is going to hold an array, and each value in that array will be of type double. Okay, so those were the three variables. Then, for the append digit, you'll notice that if I click on here, that's got the 7, the 8, the 9, the 4, the 5, the 6, the 1, the 2, the 3, and the 0. And what this says right here is the current digit is going to be whatever I just entered into my title up here. So whatever I just clicked. And I came down here and I printed it so you could see it. So you could always uncomment this if you wanted to take a look at it. Then I had to determine, is the user in the middle of typing a number, or are they just starting to type a brand new number? So remember, this is a shortcut right here, line 26. If isUserTypingNumber is a shortcut for if isUserTypingNumber equal true. So if that's the case, I want to append the digit onto the digit. So in other words, if I typed in a 9, then I typed in an 8, isUserTypingNumber would be true, and the display text, I'd want it to change from 9 to 98. But if it was a 0 there and I just started typing, so I typed in a 9, that became the display text, and now I can say the user is typing a number. Again, I put another print line statement down here, so if you want to, you can uncomment that and see that as you fill it up exactly what's happening. All right. Then we had a routine, as it says there, that's called when the user selects the enter key. And the enter key, move this over a little bit, is this key. And I have left pointing finger, but it looks to me like it's a right pointing finger. All right, and it's not doing much except that if I just click the enter key, I'm done typing. So I set isUserTypingNumber to false. Then I want to take whatever value is there and I want to append it onto this operand stack that we declared above. Then I've got a print line that should print everything that's on the stack. Now, the way that this is set up right here, I can't say this. I can't say operand stack dot append and then put inside of there where you see display value. I can't put in display.text, which is this. And the reason that I can't do that is I'd be attempting to grab a string and put it into an array of doubles. And the system will not let me do that. So what I did was I came down and I created something that's called a computed property. All right, so basically it's kind of, for lack of better words, look at it as being a variable on the fly, because that's pretty much what it is. And notice it's var display value, which is what I'm going to end up putting right in here. And it's a double. So what this says is, for the get, I want to be able to take what's in there, take that display text, convert it to a double. All right, grab that number from a string, convert it to a double, and use the NS number formatter on it. Why? So that I'm able to stick it into here. In order to do that, we set display text equal to what's called a magic variable, for lack of better words, inside of Swift that's called new value. So that's whatever I've just typed in there is new value. All right, and since I've just set that, I'm also going to set is user typing number to false. All right, next, we're wiring up the correct operator. So you'll notice if I put my mouse here, it's the plus minus key, the plus key, the minus key, the times key, the divide key, and the square root key. So again, I'm letting whatever the current operation is be whatever I've just clicked, and that's in sender.currentTitle. If you're typing a number, you're done because you've just selected one of the mathematical operations. So we call enter to show that you're done. Then we switch on the operation. Now, if it's plus, there's got to be at least two things to add, otherwise it doesn't make any sense. So if the operand stack.count is greater than or equal to 2, I grab the last two things that were put in there, add them, and throw them right back on the stack, and I'll show you that in a minute. If it's subtract, same kind of thing, but I'm going to subtract. If it's multiply, same thing, but I'm going to multiply. If it's divide, same thing, but I'm going to divide. Now I've got another couple of operations in here. This didn't exactly work the way I thought it would, but the program is getting there. It's a program in progress. Here, this is the plus minus, so all I want to do is take whatever's in there and change its value. If it's the square root, I want to grab the square root. And in both cases, I want to press enter. All right, that got me down to the bottom part here. And that, if you'll notice, I had a function that I called clear, and I should mention this. Sorry. You'll notice that here we've got a append digit, and as you see, this could be multiple digits. So we need a sender so we can tell which one. When we get to enter down here, there's only one enter key. So what you'll notice is that one's just wired up to one thing. So we don't need a sender because there's only one. When we get down to operate, again, that's wired up to be one of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different things. So we again need the sender. And finally, in much the same way, when we do the clear, it's one of those three things, either the backspace or the clear everything or the clear. All right, now the clear everything and the clear here do exactly the same thing. So I could have combined those into one case. But the main difference between clear everything and clear is designed to clear this. Clear everything is designed to clear everything, including if you've got any memory constraints. We didn't set a memory button or have memory buttons up here, but if we did, that's why I broke them down into two. But again, I grab whatever one of these three operations, and that becomes operation. If you are entering a number, you're done because you've just clicked one of those. So I run the enter routine. Then again, if it's either clear or clear everything, I make sure that is user typing number is set to false. Display value, which is going to show there, is set to false. I take the stack and I set it equal to an empty array. And I again call enter. All right. Now this one was a little bit more work, and I'm still not sure it's working 100% correctly. This is the backspace right here. In fact, let me get rid of a little bit of. Now I've got a whole bunch of blank lines in here. All right. So I went online for some of this. Some of it was just working through, and some of it, still, like I said, it's a work in progress. So if the display value was not equal to 0, if it's equal to 0, there's nothing in there anyway. So if it's not equal to 0, Again, I got this from online. I should try to remember, but it was something in Stack Overflow. See if I can grab it real quick from here. I'm on the other machine also. Yeah, I've got it. And I'm going to give it to you right now. It's kind of long, so I'll have to type it up here. But I will put it up here because I think that's important enough for you to have this available to you. http://stack-overflow.com/questions/240-92884/get nth character of a string in Swift programming language. All right. So what this is doing basically is it's figuring out how many characters we currently have in the string. All right. That's what this is doing. This line right below the line 150, the one that's right below the URL. Then we want to get one less than that. And as long as we still have a character, all right, again, this is explained in that URL, but basically what we're saying is we want to remove that character that's in there. Now, if we've reached the end, there aren't any more characters to display, I set the display.text to 0 and my display value to 0. The reason I'm doing that is when I didn't do that, eventually when I kept picking characters off, I was getting an error message in that NS formatter that you saw before. And I've got this too, so you can keep printing that stuff. All right, so I do a file, save, and run this. Again, it's not perfect, but it's a lot better than it has been. When I get done with this, I'm going to go over the last iteration of the program and show you how I changed a bunch of the stuff. All right, how I changed a bunch of the stuff that was in there. So. So I've now explained part 1 and part 2, and in part 3 what I'm going to do is everywhere where we did the mathematical operations, I'm going to show you how I used a closure to really cut down the amount of code that was in there. Still isn't coming up on here. Try it one last time. Okay, so notice if I put in, for example, 987 and I hit enter, So you can see 987 has now been put on the stack. Then if I say 100, enter, now that's on the stack. And when I click plus, okay, it added those two values together, and now that's what's on the stack. Okay, so if I say 6, enter, I now have those two on the stack, and when I say divide, all right, I actually did it backwards because it divided 6 by 1087. So let's do this. Let's say 1087, enter, times, and we've got it back to 6. All right, I can hit square root, and I get the square root of 6. When I do this, it does take that and it makes it negative. Notice now when I start to remove numbers, it is removing. All right, this is the message I got before, unexpectedly found nil. There's still an error in the code. Okay. And what that error is, I was removing things from the stack, and the reason that I was getting an error was the last thing that was in there was the minus sign. Okay, and it didn't know how to handle just a minus sign. So that's why I unexpectedly found nil when unwrapping. Now, if you look up here, and in particular, if you look at what's on the screen right now, ideally what you'll notice is most of the information that's in there right here is the same thing. In other words, if operand stack.count greater than or equal to 2 each time, display value equals operand stack dot remove last, and the only thing that's different is plus, minus, multiply, divide. But other than that, they're exactly the same thing. So what we're going to do in the last iteration is we're going to use a closure in there. And what that closure will do is it'll give us a boatload less code. So that's version 3. Let's bring that up. Now, I'm going to give you, when we do this, I'm going to give you a couple references. But just so you know, okay, again, you've seen this. What ends up happening in here, I don't want to do it like that, sorry. This doesn't look good. This looks like the same exact code that I had. I think I might have brought up the same one that I just had, so let me do another file close. Nope, it says V3. Well, that is not good. All right. I'll have to look for this because I know I've got it in here someplace. So let me stop. This is the end of part 3, and I guess there'll be a part 4 in just a couple minutes.